How's it going today, guys? We'll be taking a look at Lux today. She's a very popular champion, so we'll be giving a beginner's guide on her and just giving a rundown of some of her plays and mechanics. In the advanced guide, we'll be looking more so into her build because of how versatile her build path is. She can be played as a mid lane carry, or a mid lane support, or even bot lane, like as a support role in the bot lane. So, depending on the enemy team, uh, she has several different build paths. If you are playing against another poke champion, typically, if you're playing her as like the poke style, you can go Emax for your skill set because it is the easier poke to hit because of the large area around the detonation. And then some people like to go the Q Max just because of the cooldown on it. So again, it all depends on playstyle at that point. I personally like to go E Max if I am in the mid lane, as I like to poke up my opponent, and if I'm playing in the support role, I like to go Q Max just to have that snare up more for the team fights with my partner in the dual lanes. So the runes I go on Lux is typically Comet, Manifold Band, Transcendence, Scorch. This is just the typical poke build. And then the secondary tree, so you can, so Arcane Comet just pairs really well with your skills because when you hit them, you provide a slow on your E, and then your Q has a CC, so it kind of makes sure that the Comet will hit. Mana Flow Band is just the typical one for casters. You can go the Nullifying Orb if you are against an AP burst in the mid lane. Transcend just for the CDR. Scorch is for the early game poke. If you're playing her in the mid lane as a carry, typically you want to try and snowball early before the enemy team gets magic resist. You can get Gathering Storm if you are expecting to go for a later game. Secondary tree, I like on Presence of Mind, so when every time you harass the enemy champion, you do get some of your mana back. And then the only other good real spellcaster one there is Tenacity. You can go the Coup de Grace just so your burst will do more damage, but I just like Tenacity because you can't find Tenacity in like any item besides Murktreads. Other secondaries could be Bone Plating if you're against the aggressive AP mid laners, or aggressive mid laners in general, so that you can kind of cut off some of the damage, and then you go like the regrowth, or the one that gives you. You could go the Shield Bash in that tree if you know how to pair it with your W, or you can go the one that gives you more max health in the green tree. If you're against poke champions and you're not confident in your skills at dodging the enemy or harass, you can go second wind and then take one of those other ones. So you take second wind over bone plating. Other things you could take is free boots and then approach velocity, where you get movement speed towards the enemies that you hit with either your Q or are in the slow zone of your E, just so you can get your passive off a little bit easier. So she's very versatile in her playstyle and how you play with her. And then that also correlates and translates to her build path and skills. If you are trying to play the AP carry mid lane role, you can also take Dark Harvest as your primary. And then you take Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collector, and then probably Ravenous Hunter. Or you can take Engaged Hunter for the item CDR. Or you don't really need Ultimate Hunter because of the lower CDR on it. or the relatively low CDR on her ulti. But I would only go the Dark Harvest build if you are playing into several squishies. Like I'm probably about 3 or 4 squishies that you can potentially one-shot. Because then you become like a pick player where you just, rather than playing back and forth with harass, you're looking to one-shot somebody and then take a numbers advantage in following team fights while the person is still down. Her kit is pretty straightforward. Her Q is just a line snare that will go through one unit. So it can hit multiple units. It can only hit up to 2 units. As it'll pass through the first unit and then hit the second. So you see there I hit 2. And then see the third one was not hit there. So you can kind of set up plays where you can like shoot it through a minion and then hit an enemy in the back, an enemy champion in the back, or you can typically line it up and like get a double snare when you're trying to set up either harass or kite people out. Her W is a line shield, which she gets one when she throws it out, but then it also shields all allies that it passes through. And then that's when you need to make sure you kind of throw it out, and then you can kind of reposition so it passes through allied units again, but you do want to make sure you hit as many allies as possible with that skill. Your E is just kind of like a brand W or like a circle skill shot, where it creates a circle where you throw it and then it'll detonate over some time, or you can detonate it prematurely by pressing E again. But enemy units that walk through this field are actually slowed. So as a way to play with it is, if you are trying to run away or set up a pick, you throw it to an area where they have to run through, and then you don't immediately detonate it, because you want the slow to last as long as possible. So like if he's running from this side, I wouldn't detonate until he gets about here, and then I'd pop it so that I at least get the damage on it, but he's also slowed for the maximum amount of time. You can do the same thing to disengage off of you, where you throw it on top of yourself, and while they're running here, you just pop it, and then you can try to set up follow-up CC with your snare. So then, her offensive skills, as you see, leave a white mark on the units that they hit. This is part of her passive, where if she follows up with an auto attack, she will do an increased burst damage on them. And you get a little sound cue also when you proc it. Okay, so you want to hit a skill before you auto attack, so that it does slightly more damage and you get the harass off. There is a pretty simple combo with her where you can throw out the E to harass, and then you get the combo off. The other one is you throw out your Q, you throw out your E under it, auto attack, and then you pop the E and then you get a second auto attack. So you pop 2 of your passives on a champion with the double auto attack, because you get 1 stack from the Q and then 1 mark from the E. Her ulti will also automatically proc the marks on the units it'll also apply another mark so you can follow up with an auto attack. So it pops your passive, and then your auto attack afterward will pop another passive. So her snare is pretty short timing, so if you know you're gonna hit it, you kind of have to immediately cast your ulti. If you hesitate by about a second, they actually might be able to get out of it and dodge the ulti with like a move skill. So that's just something like, if you know you're gonna hit it, you might as well commit the ulti if you're trying to burst that target down. If you're you don't want to use it on tanks because she is the burst champion. So you can, if you land that on a priority target like a backline squishy or the enemy like squishy mid laner, you just want to commit it, because even if you don't get the kill, you force them out of the fight. So those are pretty much the mechanics of Lux. She's pretty straightforward with her kit and her skill shots. It's just the small little things that'll kind of put her over as like a more experienced player would make use of. So things that you can practice while you're picking her up. Thank you for checking out my champion guide. I hope that the tips in this video help you guys in your climb. I know that these are not the most popular builds in playstyles, however they are stepping stones for gameplay. Please let me know in the comments below the next champion you want to see. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for future content. I hope these tips help, and as always, keep climbing.